Welcome to Oiler Outlook with head coach Charlie Ernst as the Oilers prepare to go back on the road, take on the Malone Pioneers. And first, coach, go back to Thursday night at Northwood. I know a tough 60-58 loss at Northwood. And I say tough because you battled back so hard in that one from double-digit deficits. You managed to take a lead a couple of times late, but just couldn't quite get over the top.
Well, we knew going into that game, we knew all week we weren't going to have Nate, or at least we assumed we wouldn't. He was day-to-day, but we were just kind of planning as though we wouldn't have him, so we certainly didn't want to get into a track meet with them. They've been playing really well. They've shortened their bench, and they've really kind of figured themselves out a little bit. They're a dangerous team. In fact, talked to a couple coaches from our conference that had played them recently, and they all used the same word. Really dangerous, and so we kind of mixed our defenses up. We worked on something new this week, and it worked really well against them. I think partly because it caught them off guard, but man, we just struggled to score consistently without Nate in there. Felt like we shot ourselves in the foot. When our execution was good, we didn't finish. When we had poor execution, we turned it over. And it seemed as though everything was tough for us that night. But all of that being said, this team has done what it's done all year, and that is battle to the end. And we did that. And lo and behold, I guess it's just one of those seasons, bad karma. The shot that Cam got, the execution was as good as we could have possibly executed that. The full court pass by Will Aljancic was perfect. And by the way, Nate's our full court passer too, right, on action. So we didn't have him for that action, so we had to use our backup, our relief pitcher. And he threw a perfect pass to Mason, who went up and got it at just the right spot on the floor. Cam did what he was supposed to. We got about as good a look as you could get. And it hit about every part of the rim, and I have no idea how it didn't go in, but it didn't, and we lose by 2. Very disappointing, but you know what? We've been there before, and here we go. So our preparation, win or lose, didn't change for this Malone team, and what else can you do? You just move on and you get back to work.
You mentioned Will Aljancic's strong performance by Will, double-double with 20 points, 10 rebounds out there, and certainly seeing signs of what's going to be a really good Oiler career.
I'll tell you what, this guy's a warrior, and, I learned a long time ago that, there's people that talk about talent when it comes to ball handling, talent when it comes to shooting, talent when it comes to blocking shots, but then there's this rare talent. It's not looked at as talent when you just play with an unbelievable motor where you can play harder and longer than other people. And that's Will Aljancic. It's not always pretty. He'll miss some shots around the rim that you wish he'd make. He misses free throws that you wish he would make. But he plays as hard consistently as any player I've coached. And we've had some guys that are up there, and he's right up there with them, and he's only a freshman. So, he scored a third of our points last night. What's that say about a guy, freshman on the road, backs against the wall, and, man, he was fighting and scrapping to the finish. I loved it.
Well, let's put that one behind you. Time to turn attention to the Malone Pioneers. New head coach in Charlie Walrap, and come in at 9-8 overall, 2-7, and been a team of streaks in both directions, wins and losses.
Yeah, they're a pretty good team, very different than Malone teams of the past. When we played Malone here last year, for example, offensive-oriented team, very good offensive team. If they weren't number 1 in the conference last year on offense, they were number 2 at the bottom of defense. This year, it's like a flip-flop. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league. Tremendous athleticism across the board, maybe the most athletic team in our league. And good on offense, but not great. But I think that's just a culture shift. They have focused more on defense, less on offense. So it's going to be tough sledding to score. And we have struggled to score consistently here over the last couple weeks. So certainly there's concern there that we've got to be able to score the ball consistently.
They have 3 players in double figures, led by Simon Blair, who last year, the game at their place at Osborne, he went off big time. He's a dangerous offensive guy.
I think he's one of the quickest players in our league. He's got tremendous burst, and he's a 4-year player, so he's playing with a lot of confidence. Certainly the cornerstone of their team, especially on the offensive end. So obviously containing him as number one, and that's a handful because he runs the show. He's got the ball in his hands a lot. They're going to give him a lot of opportunities. They give him a lot of freedom. They trust him. And they're going to run a lot of things to try to get him into advantageous situations. So, the last time we kind of faced off against a point guard like this was Ashland, and we didn't fare very well. So we got to do a lot better in this game. I think we will. But there's going to be a lot of guys, and not only a lot of guys on the floor that have to help with that, but certainly those matchups on who matches up with him. We're going to kind of do that by committee.
Couple of games past the halfway mark here, Coach, and in the middle of this important 3-game road trip. And this is really a crunch time for the season.
Yeah, I tell our team that, and anyone that wants to listen, that every game's an important game for us. And, it's really a kind of a interesting year in this conference. The parity is unlike anything I've seen. The difference between the worst team and the best team is not that big. And I think it's partly because the worst teams are better than the worst teams and there's fewer teams down there. And maybe there's not a really good team. So there's like a difference, between Northwood, who's last right now in the league, and say Walsh, who's first, or Trevecca. Well, Northwood just took Trevecca to double overtime at their place. So the point is, there's not a big difference, and we're somewhere in the middle of that. And so there's a lot of teams having this same discussion. There's going to be a couple teams that somehow, some way, scratch out some wins, but they're going to do it by getting just a little better, sticking together, believing in one another. We need to be one of those teams. What's happened is in the past. We can't change that. But we've got enough season left, and there's enough parity that there's going to be big jumps in this league. We can't worry about February. We have one thing on our mind, and that's Malone. And that's an old adage, but it's so true with the way this league has gone this year.
Well, that sounds like a key to the game to me, Coach.
Well, I think it is.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you very much, Coach. Go Oilers.
Thank you.
All right, this has been Oiler Outlook with head coach Charlie Ernst here from the University of Findlay Department of Athletics.